Welcome to the Woman Waves podcast. We have some wonderful women on today. We have the amazing Zina Wegrzynski. We have Olivia Abbasi, and that is all for today. So Zina, tell us what you do, what you've been up to, and who you are.
Oh, God, no pressure. Okay. So I'm a development executive. I work at Bad Wolf. And Bad Wolf, obviously, we make His Dark Materials and The Discovery of Witches, I Hate Susie industry, just to name a few. So development executive, that basically means that I help shepherd our slate of projects. So I'm looking after projects before they sort of come to your screen. So they start off as ideas in a writer's brain, or sometimes even in our brains, and then we pair them with a writer, and then we sort of like shepherd them through the long process of sort of getting them ready in terms of whether or not it's a script or a treatment. That document then goes into the broadcaster, and then we basically ask them to give us loads of money in order to make it, and then sometimes they say yes. What have I been up to? Yeah, so I mean, I call them my slate babies because they cry all the time and require a lot of attention. So I sort of like look after my slate babies. Development is a long process. It takes years. If you're doing your job very well, then you can get something off the ground in like a year to 2 years, but really sometimes it takes between 2 to 5. Which sounds like a very long time, but and it is. But it's worth it in the end when they sort of get made, and you can be like, oh look, all that effort and time has actually come out for something. So yeah, I mean, I've been in development for, I'm pausing for dramatic effects, I'm trying to calculate in my head, about 6 years now, I think. That sounds about right, yeah. And I've been in TV overall for about just under 10, which is gross to think about. I mean, it's great to think about.
Yes.
It's great. Sorry, it's just like, oh, that's old. So I joined in the industry in 2012, and what we're in 2021 now, so quite a while.
So you also do script editing as well? Is that part of the development executive role, or? It
is, yes. So script editing, I mean, you script edit technically in development, you script edit all projects. So in the sense that you're helping a writer to bring their project to life and sort of giving them advice and steering them in certain directions. But as I like to say, we're the midwives, we're not the parents. So sort of script editing is very much being a midwife to the writer as mid person, gender neutral, to whoever is sort of creating the story. And then if the show gets commissioned, then I would sort of script exec it. But once upon a time, I would script edit it. And you're now going to ask me what script editing is, aren't you? And that's a much longer conversation.
What is script editing?
Oh God, what is script editing? It's not dissimilar to book editing, really. It depends. Script editing in development is different to script editing in production. So script editing in development is essentially giving sort of very constructive notes and feedback on a document, whatever that document might happen to be, whether or not it's a treatment or a Bible or a script, and sort of keeping the writer on track in terms of structure, character arcs, tone, sort of looking at that document within the wider context of the series and sort of making sure that it's in line with the overall vision that you have for the show. Sometimes it's about sort of reminding the writer of the vision that they'd originally had if they sort of like get in a cul-de-sac and they get very excited about something. Other times it's about also script editors. We're sort of the bridge between the writer and the production side. So often it'll be sort of reminding them, like, that's really great that you want 10 cats and a fireworks display, but we can only afford 8 cats and no firework display. So they then have to sort of go away and adjust accordingly. Also, sometimes it's about reminding them about the sort of the commercial aspects and thinking like, this is really interesting, but is it going to sell? Like, this is in the development sort of side when you're thinking about whether or not a project is going to sell, and then in production, it becomes a whole other thing where you're essentially trying to keep the script in a place where production, the crew is happy with it and the actors are happy with it, and the writer is happy with it, and sometimes that means everybody sort of hates you, but you're the one who's keeping the train moving, and other times it means everybody loves you, but those times just fewer. Much fewer. That's a rough guide to script editing, probably very rough.
Well, I mean, that's really interesting. You sound like the in-between messenger, which sounds difficult.
It's fun. No, it is. It's you know what? It's a great job, and I love it, and it's very. I've learned a million things through doing it, and you get to work with It's kind of the bridge between the creative and the practical, which is very cool. So.
That is very cool. And we have Olivia Abbasi. Tell us about yourself. What have you been up to, and who are you?
So I'm an actress. I have been doing acting for about 11 years now. So since I was about 4.
Wow.
And I've been doing a lot of things over the last year. A lot of things have been on standstill due to COVID, and I think that's really affected the industry and affected kind of like what I can do, which I think is quite sad. But all in all, like, things are getting started again, which is amazing, and I'm being given opportunities here, there, and everywhere now, which is amazing, like this one. Quite a hard job to get into when millions and millions of people obviously want to do it, but I think you need to have that kind of determination to be able to do it. You need to be I think sometimes it's a hit and miss. You have to be in the right place, right time, with the right certain people, kind of thing. I think also another thing about being an actress is you've got to be not easygoing, because I know I've worked with some people who are definitely not easygoing. But I think you have to be able to put yourself up for anything and everything that you can get, because I've certainly said no to things, and about a week later I've gone, do you know what? I should have done that. That would have looked amazing on my CV. But yeah.
How did you first get into acting? When did you first kind of start?
So my brother did acting, and he's in uni now for musical theatre, so we're quite a musical family.
Nice.
But I started going to LIPA, which is the Liverpool Institute of Performing Arts, at the age of 4, and I think everything just developed from then. I think certainly because of COVID, my passion for acting's come through a lot more. I mean, I've always been very passionate about it, but I think as soon as it was taken away from me, I was like, I could tell how much I really, really wanted to do it, because as soon as it was taken away from me, I didn't like it. It was horrible.
Yeah.
I just missed being in the studio with people who I love performing with, love acting with, having my amazing drama teachers and voice coaches and everyone like that around me on a daily or in rehearsals. I just missed a lot. So I think, yeah, to answer your question, I was 4 when I started acting.
And do you prefer theatre or film or?
Well, what I'm really wanting to go into is screen. But I have done stage predominantly for the amount of time I've performed and acted, which I do love. The feeling of going on stage is an incredible, incredible feeling. It's one that you literally can't get anywhere else. But screen, I'm looking to go for more, because there's more things out there than stage. I think stage is very much set in its way, and I think screen, you can play with different things and change them. And also it's a bit harder to get into, in the sense that you've got to be either with an agent, which I'm currently looking for. They're so hard to find, and find one that's right for you as an actor. But I think the best way for people to start off kind of doing that is look for an agent. Make sure you've got your headshots done, up-to-date ones. And just kind of go into it that way, because that's what I'm trying to do at the moment, and it has been so incredibly hard due to the pandemic. But hopefully when everything's up and running again, I'll be getting my auditions in, getting everything done that I really want to get done. I mean, certainly I've gone for so many auditions and not got one of them. And I think for anyone who's wanting to do that, don't let it bug you down. It doesn't matter how many auditions you do. If you get that one audition, that literally could give you the big break. It's done it for so many people. And you see many actors saying, I've done 40 auditions and not got one of them, but you've had to keep going. So,
yeah, definitely. That's such good advice. I think that's like a universal thing that we've kind of had from all actors that we've interviewed on this podcast. They've all said a really similar thing, which is you've just got to sift through the no's and just keep going, because it's always going to happen. And it's interesting because even actresses that we've spoken to that, you know, have had quite a few big roles, even they will say now they still have to audition, and there's still that rejection even at this stage. So it's kind of, as an actor, it is something that always will happen, but then there also will be amazing times where you do get the stuff as well. So it's just kind of not letting that weigh you down and not giving up.
Yeah, I think all the big actresses, it doesn't matter how big they are, you will always have to audition. You'll have to go through the process as anybody else would, whether you're a new starter or you're famous with 5 Oscars. It doesn't matter how good you are in the sense that the amount of awards you've got, but it's a sense that you go to the audition, it doesn't, like, you're seen as the same person as everybody else. But I think as well, if you go to an audition, they've got an idea in their head of who they want this character to be. And if you don't have to be bad at acting for them not to want you, you could be an incredible actress, but you just don't look the part. You didn't walk in the right way, you didn't speak to them a certain way, and they just will not want you. So it's a bit of a difficult industry to get into, but you do just have to keep persevering.
100%. And Zina, do you have to, like, with the casting process, are you any way involved, or do you know?
It depends. So the last show I did, the A-List, I mean, that was a bit different because I developed that show. So I was sort of there from the very, very beginning with the 2 sort of writers and the executive producer, and we all sat in a room and, came up with the show. So we were all very close to it in a sort of like an emotional way. So I do remember all the casting sort of happening and loads of discussions around that and stuff like that. So whilst I was in no way the deciding voice at all, it was a discussion that I was sort of like a part of, and I sort of like threw in my opinion for things. They didn't necessarily listen to it, and that's not a reflection on them. That's just like, as in, there were casting directors and other executive producers or whatever who had much more of a right to a say, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, it really depends. I think casting is a very interesting thing, because we live in a world now where talent can sometimes be enough to get things off the ground, in the sense of, if you've got the right people attached. And then other times, I've heard of things where it's like, it's a great project and has great talent attached and it still doesn't go through. It's such a weird, strange game. But yeah, I think there's such a talent gold rush across the board for writers, directors, actors, whatever. And especially all the newer streaming services, when they're trying to launch shows and they're trying to launch things, having the recognizable talent definitely can sort of push your project up to the top of the pile. But nothing's a guarantee in this world. So
there's such competition now with the streaming services, aren't there?
Yes, there is. I will be curious, shall we say, to see how the board shakes out in 5 years, 10 years.
Really?
I think that I don't know how sustainable the current situation that we're in is. So it'll be interesting to see.
It is so interesting. And how, Zina, like when you said that you work so closely with writers and stuff, you know, helping them get their ideas out. It sounds like it's a very creative role that you have. How do you find someone who's got that idea initially? Like, how do you reach out to people? Like, what's the process from the very beginning?
So every writer that we sort of speak to has an agent, just because it's purely manpower, really. I mean, like, even with all the agents, you know, every writer that we're speaking to being agented, you know, reading and getting through our submissions pile is a full-time job. Like, and that's multiple people's full-time jobs. There's just, you know, so if we open the doors to non-agent, and also there's legal considerations as well with writers who don't have agents. So part of it is that. So I mean, projects come to us in a variety of different ways. Sometimes an agent will say, I've just signed this writer, you know, they're new, really excited by them, do you want to take a look at their work? Other times it'll be like, here's a writer that you might not have, like, you know, been across before, but they've just come up with this new spec or this new idea, so do you want to, you know, sort of read it? Other times it might be a writer who's won an award, or just put on a play, or just you know, written a short that's premiered in a festival, or you know, there's a myriad of ways, and we've sort of tried to have our fingers in every single pie that we possibly can, and, you know, open the doors to as many different writers from sort of all walks of life as possible. I think we're at Bad Wolf, we're quite lucky in that sort of we've had the kudos of, you know, Jane Chanter and Julie Gardner, in that we can take a little bit more of a risk on newer writers. Like our show Industry, which is written by Mickey Down and Conrad Kay, who are new, who you know, hadn't necessarily done TV before, but, you know, had, you know, I think they'd crowdfunded a film, and they also had, you know, such knowledge and expertise in the industry that they were writing about. That you know, the sort of it was a bit of a no-brainer in that respect, and, you know, like, taking that to a broadcaster, you know, we can sort of be like, you know, this is a great idea, these are great writers, and also, you know, it's Jane Tranter, so it's the sort of the three of them together sort of make quite an attractive package. So I forgot your original question. Writers, yes. So the answer is or any way we can. We sort of come across new writers, and we come on board ideas at various different stages. Sometimes it's just, so it might be a writer that we know well, that we've met before, and they might say, actually, I've just had this idea, what do you think? We're like, yeah, no, love it, let's talk more. Or it may be that they've written a script and they send it over, or maybe they've written a pitch, we option that pitch, and then we work with them to write a script. It's very case-by-case basis, you know. It very much depends on the project and where we think you could go, which will then determine what we think we need in order to be able to sell it.
And how do you see when you get, like, a script through? What is it that makes you think, like, can you just tell straight away this is going to be something that needs to be made? Or is it something that develops over time?
That is an interesting question. So here's the thing. It's like, so a big part of my job and the job of the other people in the development team is helping writers when it comes to things like structure, which structure is quite technical, in the sense of, you know, it's a bit like the difference between something. I like to compare it to music quite often, because it is a bit like somebody coming to you with a melody and being like, oh, I like this, and you think, oh yeah, okay, that could be a song, but, you know, we need a chorus, we need a etc, whatever. So I always know if I'm reading a script, like, if the idea is really, like, interesting, or the character, what they've done with characters is really interesting, or the dialogue, or the sort of, like, the emotional depth, but the structure, like, isn't great, I'm like, that's fine, I can bring structure, I can help you with structure. What I can't do is that, what development people in general can't do is that spark, that, you know, thing of creativity or whatever. Like, so as long as you sort of have that, we can work out the rest. So that's usually what I'm looking for in, obviously, I have, you know, a consideration of, like, is this commercial, and is this that, and all that sort of stuff. But really, that first raw read, I'm just looking for that, you know, looking for it to make me feel, for it to make me, sometimes I'll read something and I'm like, this is beautifully, technically, structurally done. And I might meet with the writer and I'm like, yeah, okay, you know, you'd be really useful to have in a room, but the special ones are the ones that sort of make you really like, oh my God, I really care about this person. Like I want to, I want to know what happens next. That's usually the test for me. That's how I am. No, I want to take things on. And the hard truth is that the ratio of things I read to the things that get taken on the slate is probably quite dishearteningly small. But the reason why though is because it's for a few reasons. The first is that like as a company, we tend not to take anything on that we don't really, really, really love. Like some other companies may have a slightly different strategy where they'll be like, oh, we'll take on loads of things that we sort of like, and then we'll sort of roll the dice. So they don't mind having like quite big slates, which is also a tactic that works really well for a lot of different companies. I think for us, we'd rather have like every project is a passion project. And so yes, it's hard to get on the slate, but then once you're on the slate, you're our baby, and we'll sort of like look after you until you go off to college is the phrase that I like to use.
Nice.
So yes, it's tough to get in the door, but just pass that golden door and then it's all fine. She says, and then until you got a couple of years.
Same as what Liv was saying about acting.
Indeed. It's
go.
perseverance. I think it really does make a massive difference. And I don't know about you, Liv, but I feel like most people who are in the really creative side, to like writers or actors, they're doing it because they love it. And it's that love that keeps you going.
Has there ever been a script that you've like fought for, but it's just never gone through?
Ooh. Should I tell this story? No. I don't know.
Tell it.
I don't know if I can. Okay, no. I won't say specifically what the book is.
You can change the name.
Yeah, it's not a script. It was a book. And basically, I mean, it's like I was saying before. It's the ratio of things that you really love. And essentially, I read this book and I got like halfway into it and was just like, I emailed my bosses at the time and was like, if we do not make this book, then we have just failed as human beings. Like, it's very, very, very important. If you do nothing else with your entire company, just like option this godforsaken this book and make it, like, and you will just feel better about yourselves as human beings. And I stand by that. The company that I was working for was part owned. Actually, I'll say the title of the book, and then I won't have to say the title of the company. So the book is a book called The Power. Don't know if you've ever read it.
I love that book.
Yes. So this was, we'd got it. I think it was about a year before it was published. Our book scout had managed to get it. She's a very good book scout. She's now working for Netflix. She had managed to get it, like really, really convinced the publishers to give it to us. And I was like, we absolutely have to make this. And the company that I was working for was part owned by another company. So they sort of had to, because the option fee for that book was obviously not cheap. So we had to sort of like ask for the bigger company to sort of give us money, and the bigger company sort of read it and were like, I don't know, this feels like quite YA. I'm just not really sure there's like a lot of space for it. And I just remember thinking, well, you're going to regret that. That's just incredibly not smart. And lo and behold, was it 2 years later or something like that? I heard from the people who now have it, Sister Pictures, that there was a highly competitive bidding war between Amazon, who got it, and two other very high-profile streamers. Then I think, and then obviously Amazon won, and then they're sort of shooting it as we speak. I think actually they finished shooting in COVID.
They finished,
yeah. So, and I have no doubt at all that it will come out. I mean, it's that book and it's Sister Pictures. I have no doubt it's going to come out and win every Emmy and BAFTA ever created. And in a weird way, you know what? If it was going to go to anyone, I sort of like don't mind that it went to Sister Pictures, because not to disparage. So before I was at Bad Wolf, I'm not like so I sort of like don't mind it, but at the same time, it was one of the few times, I think there's only been twice twice or 3 times I've ever fought for a book, and that was by far the hardest I ever fought for a book. And I like to think that life proved me right. So there you go.
There you go. You should be higher up in your job. What are they doing?
Oh God, no! Don't say that. Yeah, I just, I mean, it's a very special book, if you've read it, Alicia, then you just sort of know it's I just remember thinking, my God, the scale of this could be 10 seasons you could make out of this. It's just such a brilliant.
It's just so many different characters.
So many, and even just the concept and the history behind it and the way she's done the whole, like it's counting back 10. I wasn't exaggerating when I said it could be 10 seasons. I mean, the whole point is that it's 10 years before this big event. So there you go, 10 seasons done. Like it's such a it's
and it's like fantasy as well, isn't it?
It's going to be the next Handmaid's Tale, I think, in the sense of how big Handmaid's Tale was when it came out.
Right.
It's that. It's just. I think it's going to be great, and I'm very sad that I missed the boat on that one. But oh well.
You didn't miss the boat. You knew.
One door closes, another door opens, and I wouldn't change where I am now. It's just funny how things work out. That would be the one that got. That's the one that got away.
The one that got away.
Okay, we'll be together again.
Yeah. I wanted to ask Zina, how do you know if something's going to sell? Like, is it just a gut? Like, do you have to take in consideration the platforms and?
You do, and you know what? There's no magical guidebook for it, and and then sometimes sometimes I've been wrong. Like I'm not I'm not an all-seeing oracle, definitely not in that respect. I think you sort of have to make a guided decision based on your knowledge of the marketplace and what else is selling and what else is sort of being made at the time. At any given point, there's hundreds of shows currently being made. So whilst you may think you've spotted a gap in the market in the sense of like, oh, what we haven't had for years, a space epic about monkeys, and then before you know it, actually, you know what, Netflix is doing a space epic about monkeys, and so is Amazon. I think they've also got a monkey one as well. So you're like, okay, no monkeys. I'm saying monkeys enough times now. You're like, we
need monkeys.
Monkeys, great. So it's a combination of what's already out there, and just sort of looking. I mean, there are most ideas sort of have like a life cycle to them. So you may think, oh, what we haven't had for ages is a really good telling of Count of Monte Cristo, which is Lydia Adetunde, I think her second name is. Sorry if I've mispronounced it. Is apparently doing a version of that, and I'm thinking, damn, that's a great idea. She'd be great for that. But that's a show that's been done, a few times, and I'm sure she's going to do a great take on it. Or actually, over the weekend, I saw the new version of The Invisible Man with Elizabeth Moss.
Oh right, yeah.
And I was so impressed with how they'd updated that and how they've essentially taken a story that's been around for ages. And they very sensibly, you don't focus on the invisible man, you focus on the person that he terrorizes by being invisible. And all of a sudden it feels very fresh for, a sort of post-Me Too world. You're like, yes, this is exactly the sort of tale that we should be sort of telling right now. So it's about keeping an eye on those sorts of things in terms of like classic things that can sort of be retold for a modern audience. And some of it is gut instinct to the extent where we are all sort of human and we're all part of the society that we're trying to, and the audience that we're trying to feed towards. So sometimes I try and think about the sort of stuff that I want to watch right now, and then sort of try to predict what I think or what other people, think might be popular in the future. I know, for instance, everybody I spoke to sort of the beginning of last year was all like, I want to, not beginning of lockdown even, was sort of saying, I'm so overwhelmed by all of this. I just want something comforting and people being nice to each other. And they were sort of revisiting their old comedies. And so that was a discussion that we had loads sort of, back then was, okay, well, how do we service that? Because you also have to, it can be very easy to feel like you want to chase a trend. So you watch an episode of, okay, now I'm trying to think of an example that isn't going to get me into trouble. Nope, can't think of one. I'm gonna invent one. I might see that there. But okay, like back in 2009 or 2010 or whatever, when vampires were absolutely everywhere. Like it'd be very easy to sort of look at that and go, everybody has a vampire show. We should have a vampire show. But by that point, by the time those things were coming out, like it would take you another 2-3 years to make the show. By which time it's gonna feel like, is it gonna feel like you sort of like chased a trend that was around yesterday? So you sort of have to, sort of put that aside and then think and try and predict the future, basically, with mixed results.
That's so interesting, because you don't think of like that when you see something. You kind of think, oh, if that's what's happening at the moment, then maybe we need to make that. But you're right, by the time it's actually made, it's probably people have moved on from that. It's on to the next thing. So you almost have to predict. It's almost like fashion in a way, isn't it? Like trends and stuff.
It is.
You have to kind of predict.
It is exactly like, it's exactly like that. And in the sense that some things will always be in style, and some things are what is going to be the new trend. So, there will always be a detective comes back to hometown to solve the case of the dead kid that weirdly mirrors the case that made them leave in the first place. And like, now they're divorced. And like, how are they going to reconnect with their kids? And like, there will always be space for those types of shows because they do very well. So to an extent, you can sort of go with them and, go with God. And that's fine. Or, you can, try and be bold and go for the big show that you haven't seen before. But that also comes with a risk because, every show, costs millions and millions, tens of millions of pounds to make. So you have to first convince the broadcaster that it's a good idea to sort of punt their, 60 million, 70 million easy sort of price tag on this new idea of yours. And if it works great, and you're the trendsetter, and then you're the, everybody wants to follow you. But if it doesn't, then that's a lot of money. It's just, it's a roulette wheel. Some people are very good at playing the game, very, very good at playing the game. And other times it's just pure luck. Other times it's strategy. I don't know, like, we're all just figuring it out as we go. Some of us are very good at it, some of us are not. And then,
do you like keep up to date? Do you like watch loads of shows and films so that you kind of get an idea of what's going on?
Yeah, you have to do a lot of what I like to call homework watching, which is that, as a person, there are the shows that I love to watch, and I would just quite happily watch nothing but those shows. But for like my job, I have to make sure that I'm keeping across the output of I have every streaming service it's possible to get in the UK. Watching all the stuff that's coming out on BBC and ITV and Channel 4 and whatever, just so that you can really get a set. And also just keeping track of like what's trending on Twitter, what people are talking about, what people are, I know water cooler talk isn't really a thing anymore since none of us are near a water cooler. More people are online. Oh my God, somebody wants to explain to me the sort of the very, very top headlines of how Netflix sort of tracks these things. And I was absolutely floored. I don't know how much of that I'm allowed to say, but it is remarkable how much attention they pay to how much people are talking about their shows. They really do pay a lot of attention to that. So it's good so I try to do the same, and try to go, oh, okay, I didn't like that show, but everybody was talking about it. So clearly there must be something in it that's resonating with those people. Trying to figure that out, and then trying to, and sometimes sort of like trying to reverse engineer. So rather than saying everybody liked that monkey show, therefore we should make a show about monkeys. I don't know why I'm obsessed with monkeys. It's just the example. I might say, okay, this is about monkeys, but really this is about found family, or this is about romance or something. I can't think of anything. So that's something, or community. I think that's free, like potentially terrible or potentially good development advice. I think that the lack of community that we've all had in the past year and a half I think the need for that is going to linger for quite a while, and we're all going to be sort of looking for things that make us feel closer to each other. That just remind us that we can all actually be decent and nice. Which is why things like Ted Lasso have done so well, because it's so refreshing to see somebody just be nice. He's such a lovely person. It's so comforting to watch. as a TV show. I think we are definitely coming the early starting with Breaking Bad, Sopranos, etc. I think, you know, there was a really big long cycle of the anti-hero, you know, of the I'm outside the establishment, I'm going to play by my own rules. It's dark, it's gritty, it's you know, the whole point is that the world is terrible and corrupt, and we're really going to have fun with it. But as the world around those shows, and those shows are still finding an audience, and they're still, you know, definitely resonating. But as the world around TV has changed so much, I think we're sort of and also our understandings of sort of like how we interact with stories and masculinity and sexuality and all that sort of stuff. I think we are moving away from that. Oh look, he's a person who can just do whatever he wants, and he's shooting everybody. I think there's less of a tolerance for that.
Definitely. I was saying to someone the other day, I was like, we need those old school like 90s rom-coms back.
Yes.
We need them.
Romance. Telling you right now, romance. And that's partly from stuff that we're working on. But also I just know that from the general like chatter in the air is that everybody's pivoting towards romance. Because that's what everybody wants to watch. Everybody wants to feel better about, like, remember when people were nice to each other? Remember when, you know, and like you trip and you fall and like, oh, look, I bump into you at a pajama store and you were buying like tops and I was buying bottoms, and now like, we're basically like meant to be together. And we know it's cheesy and we know that it doesn't make a lot of sense, but we don't really care because, you know, it's either watch that or like go on Tinder. Which one do you really want to do to feel better about the universe? Rom-coms are going to come out swinging in a very big way. Not that they've been doing badly, to be fair. Like Netflix has shown how well they do when they're done well. I'm crediting Netflix a lot here. Go Netflix.
I know. You should work for Netflix. Jesus.
You're getting paid sponsorship. Where do you see things going in the future in terms of, like, obviously now we've got such a big platform with the streaming platforms and Netflix and Prime and all this Now TV, and where do you see it going in terms of, like, you know, compared to even 5 years ago? The industry now for acting and for shows and for content being made is so different. There's just so much being made at the moment. Do you think it's going to continue and there's just going to be more and more stuff being made, or is there going to be like a shift again?
It's a tricky one. I think a couple of different opposing things. I think there will be more of a move towards curation. So I mean, these things do spin in cycles. So you know, we're sort of like, the whole point of you know, Netflix and all the rest of them was sort of like to free us from schedules and to free us from, you know, you can watch things whenever, you can binge things whenever. But I think all of those things do speak to a sort of human need of sometimes I don't want to think, sometimes I don't want to choose, sometimes I don't want to think about what I'm going to watch next. So however that might manifest itself, I think we will start to see more methods of this is how you just watch something that's a bit more, I don't know. But yeah, it's been curated by somebody else. I mean, obviously you have the algorithms on all the different streamers, but whether it's I don't know, a channel, using air quotes, channel here, made up of, here are all the shows that you used to like, so you can, like, I don't know, press shuffle and then here's another show that you might like, or you know, like you want to watch a romance and then it's like it's a curated channel that's made out of for an algorithm of the type of stuff that you want to watch, or something like that, or maybe
that's what they've done with Netflix now. Yeah, you're a genius.
No, I wouldn't quite go that far. But yeah, I think that, you know, however, I think the technology is just advancing so much that I wouldn't even want to wouldn't want to try and pretend to guess as to how that's going to manifest. But I do think that there will be a sort of drive more towards it. In terms of like the amount of content, it wouldn't surprise me if in the next 5 to 10 years we start to see a consolidation of all of these sort of services, just because I think that practically it's unlikely that the average person is going to pay for each individual one, you know, past 3 or 4. So maybe we might start to see, but I know that like in the States, for instance, you can get like Disney and Hulu and whatever, like I don't know whether they'll start to be like bundles. And then, you know, they start to, you know, sort of to consolidate down or whatever. I mean, that's all tied into much, you know, bigger considerations like business models and distribution deals and all of that stuff that, honestly, I don't necessarily understand the nuances of it completely. But yeah, I'm curious to see what happens myself, because I from an outsider's perspective, in the sense of it, because I don't necessarily understand all of that stuff, I'm not sure how sustainable it is to continue to have 1,000 different ones. So
yeah. So Liv, you are part of the Girls Network. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so I got into Girls Network through school, and I got sent an email, and I was like, do you know what? Give it a go. If I don't get it, I don't get it. If I do, it'll be an amazing opportunity. And I had to fill out an application form and all things like that. And then after about a week, I found out that I got it. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. And then we managed to kind of like, we did like a few calls with like Samia and that, which was amazing, who's with the Girls Network. And we were just talking about through our mentors. I'm a mentee. I have a mentor who is helping me with a lot of things kind of to do with like life, to do with like if I ever need to fill an application for somewhere, she will always be on there, on point. She'll be like, right, what do we need to do, kind of thing. So the idea of the Girls Network is so young women across the nation can kind of learn not just about like life in general, but about how to write a CV, how to apply for jobs, how to walk into an interview, get the confidence to kind of talk to new people. And obviously that's why Samia thought of me, because she says I'm very outgoing, I'm easy to talk to, so she was like, be a good idea to get Liv on the call. So yeah, it's an amazing opportunity, and I think anybody who can get it will get so much out of it, because I've had about 3 sessions now with my mentor and I've learnt so much from her. And I think it's just amazing to have somebody who is wiser than me, knows about life more than me, and has a lot more experience in the workplace than me. I mean, I do not have very much workplace experience. So yeah, it's amazing to have someone like that, and I think grab it with open arms.
Have they helped you with your acting? Have they helped you with
Well, they've
anything
helped me
to
with
do
like work experience, because obviously like at the moment, COVID, all the acting jobs are off, and kind of like getting auditions as well. It's hard enough without the pandemic, and obviously with the pandemic now it's even harder. So
There's some really great things you can do, like going on Twitter and Instagram and following all these casting directors, because often they'll put up some auditions for things that you don't necessarily need an agent for. You can email and say, this is who I am, this is my headshot.
Yeah, you definitely have to double check those ones to see whether they're like all good, because I mean I've definitely applied for some and I've got no response at all, and you're like, well, that's fun. Do you know what I mean?
I do get annoyed with that.
It's horrible when no one responds to you, especially after auditions. They just don't reply if they don't want you. So yeah,
that's the thing, isn't it? It can be quite cutthroat. I think that kind of goes back a little bit to what you were saying earlier about, you know, just try and keep going, because it is hard sometimes when you put your all in and you send a self-tape and you like put a lot of work in on a character and then you just don't hear anything back. It can be quite disheartening, but I think there's probably thousands of applicants as well, and I think it's just important to not let that stop you from ever applying again in the future. Do you know what I mean? And one day you will get a reply and it will be a yes, like 100%.
Yeah, I think
just have to keep doing it.
The worst part of it is like when you know you have like loads of auditions that you really want to go for, but you've got one that you really, really, really want, and you still haven't got a reply back, and you're like, well, do I go for these other ones or not? Because it's kind of just like, do I go for them? Do I not? Because if I get this one, then I can't do this one, but I really want this one.
Yeah,
So,
that is
yeah.
that is difficult, letting go of the good ones. I've had to let go of so many good ones that it's like it's painful. It's like, oh no, I nailed that one, but you know that it just obviously didn't fit the casting. But
I've definitely walked
Yeah,
out of auditions and been like, oh my god, that was amazing, and just still not got a reply back, and you're like, well,
yeah,
I tried. I think because I know I've tried my best, it doesn't affect me as much. And I think if you
Yeah.
walk into an audition, you tried your best, you know you did your best, but if you don't get a reply and you don't get it, it's not the end of the world. You just weren't right in that moment. You weren't right in that day. Maybe your director's tired. Maybe they didn't want you that day. Who knows? Like,
yeah,
it doesn't matter. Even if you didn't get it, it doesn't matter. That's not to say you aren't talented. That's not to say you won't be the right fit for another character. It's just you weren't the right fit for that day, or you weren't fit for the directors and the creative team and the script writers kind of like image in their head of who they want. It's not you particularly.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like Alicia said this before, it's kind of like, as long as you enjoy the process of it. So even getting an audition in the first place is like a massive thing. Like, especially as you said, there's just so much competition in this type of industry. So like, so many people, even getting an audition is like a massive achievement. So if you're auditioning quite, regularly, I can never say that word, regularly, then that itself is amazing. And I think just, exploring the characters and enjoying the process of building the character and like creating that audition and enjoying that and just taking that as enough, and then if you actually get the role, then that's a bonus. And I think that's a really healthy way to see it.
Yeah, I mean, like Zina said before, like it's to do with what the kind of director wants with characters, and also like the actors as well, because I know if it's hard to explain. So if like the actor is like knows this character's good, but the script writer wants them to act in a completely different way, it's confusing. An actor might act the role a certain way, but the scriptwriter might want them to act a completely different way because it's been in their head and it's the way that they've written it. That makes sense.
It does. And you know what? Characters are... All storytelling is a collaborative experience. Nothing ever happens, especially in television. Nothing ever happens in isolation. Characters are the product of the writer, definitely, but they're also a product of the director. They're the product of the actor. They're the product of the how they're expressed in their costume and in a music cue or whatever. So I mean, it's obviously advocating for the writers over here. Yeah, it's you create these characters and you sort of like love them into existence over however many years, but the actor is the vessel for them. So they, and sometimes they see something that you didn't. So I think it is very much about finding a way through it, like as a journey sort of together. And sometimes then one side might put their foot down, on the other side the other side puts their foot down. It's a collaborative process.
Yeah.
So.
I do always say, like, there's a part of me that really enjoys auditioning because it's the only time really that you get to create the character as your own before the director gets involved and gives you notes and tries to change bits. And so it's like the moment you get to go have fun and just create somebody that's completely different to yourself.
You're honing that, like every time that you're creating all those characters, you're honing your craft and you're honing your skill, and that's being able to do that, I think is impressive. And it's fascinating to see all the different interpretations of a character that you've had for so long, and then somebody takes them in that direction. You're like, I would never taken them in that direction, but that's really fascinating that you got that from the same script. Like, I just find that really interesting. So
yeah, it's so interesting to see how different people's minds work and how they interpret the script and like the different ways of them playing that character. It is really fascinating.
Absolutely.
Is there a particular character that you want to play, Liv? Is there
Oh
like
my
one?
gosh, yes, there's loads. Absolutely loads, and there's loads of actresses and actors that I'd love to work with, but like in my dreams kind of things, you know what I mean?
It's in the future.
couple
It's in
of-
the future.
In
the future, we'll
Yeah.
try and make it then. But like kind of characters that I'd love to play, well, one of my absolute favourite TV show is Killing Eve. Just because the high scale of acting, never mind the TV show and the storyline, but the high scale of acting in that show is mental. And the script writing. Phoebe Waller-Bridge is one of the best screenwriters I think I've ever like come across in a TV show. She makes the characters come through so differently and so like incredibly. I can see Zina laughing over there.
No, I'm completely agreeing. I'm completely agreeing with you. Like when Killing Eve first came out, I wouldn't shut up about it. I was just like, it's so good.
Oh,
It's
it
so
is
good.
incredible.
Is Jodie Comer quite a big inspiration to you? Liv,
Oh my
from
God.
Liverpool?
I love her. I love her. I mean, she is one of the people who I'd love to work with. And I mean, her character is so complex. Like, I'd love to play her character, but there's people who I've seen speak, like, act this, like, the season 1, episode 1 script, and they did it a lot like her, which I don't like, in the sense that if you're going to play a role, don't play it like another actor did, because then you would just be doing the same as them. And when you go to auditions, directors don't want the same person they've had before. If you acted the same as the person before, then there's no point of auditioning, kind of thing. And I mean, she plays such a specific role, and the way she plays it is so incredible. I mean, I don't know how she does it. It is just incredible. But her character is so complex. I think it's hard to get into the mindset. She must have had to like go over and over and like study psychopaths, because it's so weird. Because I was talking about this the other day, that drama is the study of people. And I never really thought of it like that. When I go to do a character, I'm studying a person, unless I've made them up. But her character, I just don't think I'd be able to pull off. But Sandra Oh plays Eve Plastry, and I think I'd be able to do hers more. Not because it's easier, because I do like a challenge, but her character's still really hard. But that show is kind of like, I think that's what really wanted me to go into screen acting, because I was like, I want to work with Jodie, I want to work with Sandra, I want to work with all these people. Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of people who I'd love to work with, but hopefully I'll be able to work with one of them in the future.
Oh, I'm sure you will.
Apparently Jodie's absolutely lovely. So there you
Is
go.
she?
Apparently which doesn't surprise me at all. Like, she just seemed, I remember seeing an interview with her and thinking, oh my God, you just seem like the nicest person ever.
Down to earth.
Yeah, the accent thing will always baffle me. I could not believe she was a Scouser. Couldn't believe
Oh,
it.
did you not? I knew that. But I also know people who worked with her and like taught her when she was like my age. So, I mean, she does have a very, very good, weirdly, talent to do accents, very on point. And I don't understand how, because I can do a lot of accents. Like, I've been asked to do so many accents, and I can do all of them. Like, I don't care. Ask me to do Russian, like Jodie Comer, I will literally just walk away and go, no. I can't. I just let myself down there. I mean, as actors, you do get vocal coaches, so she definitely would have had one. She would have definitely had on set a vocal coach, because nobody can pull off an accent that easily without a vocal coach.
But I do remember reading somewhere that Phoebe had said that was one of the things that really struck her about Jodie, was just that she's such an incredibly gifted mimic, that she just has one of those ears, you know, where she just hears something.
She's doing a new series with Stephen Graham. That's based in Liverpool, isn't she?
She is.
That should be coming out soon.
Jack Thorne. It's just Jack Thorne series. I mean, I honestly do think
Yeah.
that maybe Jack Thorne has a clone,
Thing.
or
'Cause he's
some
doing
sort
stuff all the
of,
time.
you know, he's. Oh my god! It was a bit of a running, because obviously he does his Dark Materials, and it's always a bit of a running joke in that we'll like, you know, see on Deadline or whatever, like, oh, Jack's got a new series out, or like we'll switch on the TV, like this is Jack's, but like he works over here and he's like working on. I don't know how he does it. I think he's just one of those unbelievably prolific people who somehow manages to do 10,000 things at the same time. I wish I knew his secret.
Yeah.
Maybe we should get Jack on here. We need your secret. We need your I think we should get a last little question in.
Is it the Hogwarts house?
Oh.
Actually, yeah, we'll do that before we go.
Yeah.
Which Hogwarts house
Oh
are
my
you?
god.
I'm so sorry that I started. It was meant to be a joke.
Can we maybe just so that it's part of this in association with Fate the Winx Saga, that way it makes sense.
Are you talking about me plugging Netflix? That's smooth.
I feel like you're both getting paid. Netflix and where?
Wait, you actually asked me
Genuine
a question.
question.
I thought you had another question.
It's a genuine question. That's a question I've never heard in an interview before, and I've done quite a lot.
I've been asked this question so many times quite recently, and I feel like yes, it's just part.
I'm really intrigued what you're gonna say, Lee.
Ah,
Yeah,
If I was to guess for Alicia, I would say you are Ravenclaw.
look,
she knows.
I disagree on that.
Oh,
Controversial.
the Sorting Hat does not lie, Alicia.
I would say that I was more of a Hufflepuff.
Interesting. Okay.
But, you know, like, obviously, we spoke about this before, and you guys said I was a Slytherin, so, you know, each their own. Each their own.
That's only because you won't pet a cat when you first see it. For context.
What?
Because she's Slytherin.
I'm so confused.
Cats are evil.
I have 2 cats. They are bots.
Evil. Look, they're just very, very smart. Like, you know, they just realise I could go hunt myself, or I could get this weird hairless cat, like, to go give me food. And then they, like, want to pet me. I just think that that's just so unbelievably smart. Like, credit
I
to
just
cats.
don't enjoy the disrespect, the disloyalty. Like, I'm not about
What's
it.
the disrespect?
Like, I want a dog that was...
What disrespectful cat have you come across? Like, I've never come across a disrespectful cat.
I'm going to tell you a very quick story.
Okay.
I used to stay at my friend's house all the time, and I used to sleep in her living room, and this cat used to, no word of a lie, climb like this, like hanging, climbing from all over, like on the sofas, under the sofas, and then would pounce, scratch, and then look at you and run away. Not about it. Cats
They
are
have
scratch.
Attitude. They have personality. Okay, like my aunt used to have a cat where if she was away for like a night or two, like or something, the cat would like wait in front of the door, then stare at her, and then go and stand in the corner with like her back to my aunt, as if to say, "You left me, so I'm just like not talking to you now." And I'm sorry, but I just have nothing but respect for an animal that does that. That's just like a level of sass that I just like aspire towards.
That is incredible.
That is
Okay, what house is it? Are the rest of y'all?
I don't know. I don't know what vibes I give off.
I actually don't know. If I was to sort myself,
Self-sort.
self-sort, I would say Gryffindor.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just because that's what I want. I don't know if that's just because that's what I want, as opposed to what I actually would be in.
Yeah, I feel like you've got big Gryffindor vibes, actually.
Pottermore would tell you. I went into, because I'm just admitting apparently in public now that I've done the Pottermore test, but you know what, I stand by it. I really wanted to be Ravenclaw. I really was like, I want to be like the smart one. Now I'm Ravenclaw. And I'm in Slytherin.
Oh, you badass.
Interesting.
The thing
The
is,
first thing they tell you is, don't worry, you're not evil.
I feel like if I was in a house, it'd have to be like a house on my own.
I feel like you might be a fellow Slytherin there, Liv.
Because you can't put me into any of the others.
Yeah.
I just call it like the Liv house or
The
something.
Sorting Hat would be like, it would blow up. It wouldn't know what to do.
It wouldn't.
It's interesting, actually. You know what? Because like, there's so many memes and stuff about it. About like, you assume. I think my favorite one was something about like how you get through a door, and I can't remember the specifics of it, so I may butcher this joke. But it was something like Gryffindor, like Ravenclaw picks the lock, Gryffindor barges in, Hufflepuff. Slytherin. Wait, is Slytherin, or is it Slytherin who picks the lock? Slytherin, I think, No, Slytherin picks the lock. Ravenclaw like finds a key. Hufflepuff, Gryffindor barges in, and Hufflepuff knocks.
I've got a question for all of you.
Like,
how the hell do you know so much about like Harry Potter or Hogwarts or just has? Because it's not like it comes easily to me. Like I'd have to study that.
Yeah.
Do you like spend your nights just reading like Harry Potter?
I mean, it's call it the millennial curse or whatever. I don't know. It's just you're sort of like you hatched, fully formed with like avocado toast in one hand and like a copy of like an encyclopedic knowledge of Harry Potter in the other. I mean, I don't make the rules, but I'm aware that I probably know more about Harry Potter than the average person, but I like books and I like nerdy shit.
I can tell.
So in that Venn diagram, like Harry Potter's pretty high up there, and that's.
I think it was just such a big thing, wasn't it, when we were growing up? It was just such a massive part of our childhood.
It was. I watched The Devil Wears Prada the other day, and I was like, there is literally no equivalent to, when she wants to give her the impossible task, and she's like, find me the unpublished Harry Potter manuscript. There's no modern day equivalent for it. There's no way of describing how ridiculous that task is. Like, it's even more than like, oh, can you get me the nuclear codes? Because like multiple people have the nuclear codes, and it's like important or whatever. But like the unpublished Harry Potter manuscript was just, oh my God.
I love how that's what you guys were kind of like brought up with. We were brought up with like Clifford the Big Red
Dog.
Dog.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I remember that.
Oh my God. I showed a year 7 that the other day and they didn't know who it was and I nearly cried. I was like, how do you not know who this is?
It's strange when that happens. My friend showed someone in her office the other week a floppy disk and they had no idea what it was.
Oh my God. You don't know what that is.
No clue over there.
You saying you don't know what a floppy disk is?
I mean, if you'd explain it to me, I might know.
You know when you go to save a document on Word?
Yeah.
You know the little icon?
Yeah.
That was originally a thing. That was like a floppy disk. That's what that.
You used to put it in the machine.
It was like a USB drive, like a flat USB drive.
No, I know what that is. Yeah, I know what it is. I'm not that.
Thank goodness. One last question. The actual last question this time. What advice would you have for any aspiring creatives listening?
I would say, what would I say? My advice. I mean, I feel like there's loads of different stuff that I would say, but I would say that the thing that should get you like 80% of the way, if you're ever trying to sort of break in, is passion. Like, you would be surprised by how many people I meet trying to sort of break into the TV industry, and they sort of like the idea of TV. And, maybe they've, I don't know, really loved Game of Thrones or something. But they don't have that sort of, I watch a movie and then the first thing I do is look up IMDb trivia, sort of like passion for TV. It's one of those things that when you spot it, you're immediately, if you're like in the industry, you're immediately inclined to help the person who you feel has that passion. Because the rest of it you can sort of learn, the skills, experience, whatever. Like, everybody's got to start somewhere, but I can't teach you passion. I can't teach you to really care and to love it. So I would say, it's not easy to get into TV. It's tricky, and the hours are long, and it's hard, it's complicated, and in many ways it's a great job, and I'm not saying there aren't a million and one jobs that are far harder, but to sort of make your way in is difficult. So it's ask yourself if you have that passion, and if you really love it, then not to go to Jurassic Park, but life will find a way.
Love it.
Nice.
Liv?
I think for me, it's kind of just like Zina said, passion is one of the most important things. And not to let yourself kind of drop. Because if you let yourself drop, then all that passion kind of goes, as in the sense that because you have messed up a few auditions, like you might walk out of an audition and you go, oh, I've messed that up, but that might be the audition you do get. Does that make sense? It doesn't. I think also don't rush into it. I know people who've just started acting and they're like, I'm going to get an agent. I've done acting for 11 years. I've never had an agent, never had a manager, and I've still managed to get places. So don't rush into things. I think don't try and be your favourite actor. That's one thing I've definitely learned. The people who've done the best have been individuals. They've never copied anybody else. They've never tried to be anybody else. They've always been themselves. And that comes across when you're watching their interviews or watching their kinds of like shows. It's just be yourself, because I've not been myself certain times. And then I've got a response back and it's like, I don't think you were yourself enough in that. And then that pulls you down. And I just think, have the passion to do it. Make sure you do enjoy it. If you go in wanting to do it just because you like the idea of being famous and being on TV, then it's not the right job for you. If you want to do it for being an actress, then do it for being an actress. So, yeah, just persevere. Perseverance is one of the most important things in the industry and throughout any creative thing.
Perseverance is the name of the game. In fact, I used to work for Hattrick, and Jimmy Mulville, the head of that company, has a quote on his wall, and I can't remember all of it right now, but it's something like, nothing can take the place of persistence. And then it goes on to be like, talent, there's loads of talented people, there's loads of like lucky people or whatever, but it's just persistence. Just keep, just do a dory and just keep swimming. And I would also, and so I think you're totally right, Liv, that persistence is so unbelievably important. And I would also just add really quickly, because it just occurred to me, be kind. The creative industries especially can lead to this sort of like, deification of creative people. And it's, this idea that if you are talented, then you somehow have license to not be a very nice person. But, TV is, of all the creative industries, and I can only speak to TV because obviously it's the one that I've worked in, but it's such a team sport, 100% a team sport, that you just be kind. Don't be an asshole. Just, everybody is working like, long, ridiculous hours, and, nobody slept and they haven't seen their families or whatever. So just go the extra mile and try to be a decent person. It costs you nothing.